Nobody imagined that a fear attack would bind two strangers so intensely, and that desperate touch would change their lives forever. If you enjoy stories like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. We post daily. Continuing. Marina Olivia Stone had always known she wasn't meant for that world. The world of gilded ballrooms, calculated smiles, and empty conversations seasoned with French champagne and arrogance disguised as politeness. But there she was, squeezed into a black dress borrowed from her best friend, trying to breathe within the mirrored walls of the elevator in the Venetian Hotel, the most luxurious building in London. The invitation had arrived through the law firm where she worked as a paralegal. Networking event, they said. Unique opportunity, they insisted. Marina knew it was a lie. She knew she was only there to fulfill the social diversity quota that such events required to keep up appearances. A select few from the middle class to dilute the obscene concentration of wealth and power that dominated those circles. The elevator was packed. Men in bespoke suits discussed mergers and acquisitions with the casualness of discussing the weather. Women adorned with jewels whispered about house renovations in gated communities and trips to destinations Marina only knew through the internet. The air was heavy with expensive perfumes and even more expensive expectations. That's when the elevator stopped. It wasn't a normal stop. The number 15 blinked on the digital panel, then went dark. The fluorescent lights flickered. An uncomfortable silence filled the space, quickly replaced by murmurs of impatience. "Must be a technical problem," someone said. "This is unacceptable," a female voice complained, laden with indignation. Marina felt the first tightening in her chest. The space seemed to be shrinking. The mirrored walls endlessly reflected the bodies around, creating a claustrophobic labyrinth of repeated images. She closed her eyes, trying to apply the breathing techniques she had learned in therapy sessions, but the panic was stronger. The sensation was familiar and terrifying. At 8 years old, she had been trapped in a wardrobe during a game of hide-and-seek that turned into a nightmare when the lock jammed. 6 hours of screaming, pleading, until someone finally found her. Since then, enclosed spaces were her personal kryptonite. Her heart pounded. Her hands began to sweat. The air seemed thin, insufficient. Marina opened her eyes and saw only bodies around, blocking any possibility of escape. The feeling of being crushed grew exponentially. That's when she lost control. Her hands desperately sought something solid, something real to cling to. They first found the lapel of an impeccable suit, then the arms of someone who seemed made of stone and determination. She clung tightly, like a shipwreck survivor to a lifebuoy, without even looking at the face of the person she was using as an anchor. She expected rejection. She expected to be pushed away, reprimanded, treated as the intruder she clearly was in that environment. Instead, she felt firm arms wrap around her, creating a protective shield against the chaos around. "Breathe with me," a deep, controlled voice said. "Inhale slowly, exhale even slower." Marina finally lifted her face and met the most intense eyes she had ever seen. Grey like an approaching storm, but with an unwavering calm that contrasted with the turbulence she felt. The man was tall, with dark hair and strands of grey at his temples, marked features that spoke of determination and perhaps loneliness. "Focus on my voice," he continued, completely ignoring the curious glances of the other passengers. "Nothing else exists beyond this breath. Inhale, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. She obeyed, hypnotized not only by his voice but by the way he held her. It wasn't possessive or intrusive. It was protective, as if it were the most natural thing in the world to offer shelter to a panicked stranger. "Better?" he asked after a few minutes, when her breathing finally stabilized. Marina nodded, suddenly aware that she was still clinging to him as if her life depended on it. She quickly let go, her face red with shame. "Sorry, I didn't—" "No need to apologize," he interrupted, and there was something in his voice that made her believe he truly didn't care. "Claustrophobia." "Since childhood," she admitted, surprised by her own honesty. It was then that the elevator resumed its function, as if it had only been a test of fate. The doors opened on the 20th floor, revealing the main ballroom of the gala. Classical music floated through the air, mixed with lively conversations and the clinking of crystal glasses. The crowd quickly dispersed, eager to forget the incident and return to the evening's glamour. Marina hesitated at the elevator threshold, still trembling, when she felt a light hand touch her elbow. "Are you sure you're all right?" She turned and again met those stormy eyes. In the ballroom's light, she could better see the man who had saved her from panic. He was about 40, with an erect posture that spoke of natural authority, and wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than she earned in 6 months. But there was something beyond money and power, a contained intensity, as if he were constantly holding something important back. "I'm fine," she lied. "Thank you for that." "I'm Gabriel," he said, extending his hand. "Marina," she replied, briefly shaking his fingers, and feeling an electric shock run up her arm. "Marina," he repeated, as if testing the name. "Would you like me to escort you out? This kind of event can be overwhelming." It was a kind offer, but Marina noticed the genuine curiosity behind it, as if he too were a fish out of water in that ocean of ostentation. "Actually," she said, surprising herself, "I think I'll stay a bit, since I'm already here." Gabriel smiled, and it was the first true smile she had seen all evening. "In that case, may I invite you for a drink? Promise there are no elevators between here and the bar." Marina laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised her. Promise accepted. The bar was at one end of the ballroom, decorated with Italian marble and crystals that reflected the lights like stars. Gabriel ordered a single malt whiskey. She chose a glass of red wine. The music was soft enough to allow conversation, loud enough to create privacy. "You don't seem comfortable here," Gabriel observed, leaning against the bar counter. "This is my perfectly comfortable face," Marina replied ironically. "Imagine when I'm actually uncomfortable." He chuckled, a deep, genuine sound. "May I make a confession? I hate these events too." "Then why are you here?" Gabriel hesitated for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. "Professional obligations. Sometimes we need to show up in places we'd rather avoid." "I understand perfectly," Marina said. "I'm here representing the firm where I work. Apparently they needed someone from the working class to give the event a more diverse face." "What field do you work in?" "Law. Paralegal, more specifically. Nothing too glamorous, but I love what I do." Gabriel studied her for a moment, and Marina had the strange feeling that he was seeing much more than she had revealed. "Law is fascinating," he said, "especially when used to protect those who truly need it." "Exactly. That's what I always say. Justice should be about people, not about who can afford the best lawyers." Gabriel's eyes lit up. "Have you ever thought about becoming a lawyer? Having your own firm?" "Every day," Marina confessed. "I'm finishing college at night, but, well, dreams don't pay the bills." "Perhaps not," Gabriel said softly, "but they keep us alive." The conversation flowed naturally after that. They talked about social justice, about literature. Both were addicted to psychological thrillers, about trips they wanted to take and places that inspired them. Gabriel revealed a surprising passion for colonial architecture. Marina shared her secret love for astronomy. It was strange how two people from seemingly different worlds could have so much in common. Gabriel had a way of listening to her that made Marina feel interesting, intelligent, valuable. Not like someone tolerating her presence, but like someone genuinely fascinated by her opinions and experiences. "Would you like to dance?" he asked when the orchestra began to play a slow waltz. Marina hesitated. "I'm not very good at ballroom dancing." "Neither am I," Gabriel admitted with a conspiratorial smile. "We can pretend together." She laughed and accepted his outstretched hand. The dance floor was moderately crowded, elegant couples gliding with practiced grace. Gabriel led her to the center, one hand at her waist, the other delicately holding her fingers. "Just follow my rhythm," he murmured close to her ear, and Marina felt a shiver run down her spine. They moved slowly, finding the beat of the music and each other. Gabriel was a better dancer than he had admitted, but not presumptuously so. He guided her with subtlety, allowing her to feel confident, graceful, You're lying about not knowing how to dance, Marina accused, smiling. Mandatory lessons in adolescence, he confessed. My mother believed every man should know how to lead a lady properly. Your mother was a wise woman. She was, Gabriel said, and Marina caught a momentary sadness in his voice. She would have liked you. How can you be sure? Because you're real, he answered simply. Nothing in this place is real, except you. The music changed to something slower, more intimate. Other couples moved away from the floor, but Gabriel and Marina remained, moving, at their own pace, creating their own bubble of intimacy in the middle of the crowded ballroom. Gabriel, Marina began, suddenly aware that she knew nothing about the man who made her feel like she was the only person in the world. Yes? What do you do? Professionally, I mean. He hesitated again, that same pause she had noticed before. I work with justice. Like you. It was a vague answer, but the way he held her, the way he looked at her, made Marina decide that the details could wait. That night was about feeling, not about analyzing. When the music ended, they remained embraced for a few seconds longer than socially appropriate. The ballroom around them seemed to have disappeared, leaving only the two of them and the electric connection that pulsed between their bodies. Want to get out of here? Gabriel asked, his voice hoarser than before. Marina knew she should say no. She knew she should be sensible, cautious, responsible. Instead, she nodded. Where to? Gabriel smiled, that smile that seemed reserved just for her. Trust me? And against all logic, against all prudence she had learned in her 28 years of life, Marina trusted. They left the ballroom discreetly, like two conspirators escaping from a gilded cage. Gabriel led her through the hotel corridors until they reached a private elevator that required a key card. Do you live here? Marina asked as they ascended. I have an apartment on the top floor, he explained, for special occasions. The doors opened, revealing a private corridor that led to a single double door. Gabriel opened it, and Marina found herself in a space that seemed straight out of an architectural magazine. The apartment occupied the entire top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of London. The city stretched infinitely in all directions, a sea of lights twinkling like earthly stars. My God, Marina murmured, approaching the windows. It's beautiful. Gabriel approached from behind her, not touching, but close enough for her to feel the warmth of his body. Sometimes I come here just to remember how the world is bigger than our problems, he said softly. Marina turned to face him. And what are your problems, Gabriel? He studied her for a long moment, as if deciding if he could trust her with the truth. Loneliness, he said finally. The weight of decisions that affect other people. The feeling of always playing a role, never being just myself. And who are you when you're not performing? I don't know, Gabriel admitted, moving closer. It's been so long I no longer know the difference. Marina raised her hand and gently touched his face, surprised by her own courage. Perhaps tonight you can find out. It was Gabriel who closed the distance between them. The kiss was slow at first, tentative, as if he were asking permission. Marina responded by pressing herself against him, her hands finding his dark hair, pulling him closer. The second kiss was more urgent, more desperate, as if both were thirsty for something they didn't know they needed until they found each other. Gabriel's hands found her waist, moving up her back, delicately unzipping her dress. Are you sure? He asked against her lips, giving her one last chance to retreat. In response, Marina began to unbutton his shirt, revealing a defined chest that spoke of hours at the gym, or perhaps an iron discipline in everything in life. What happened next was more than sex. It was a silent communication, an exchange of vulnerabilities, a mutual discovery that two people could connect so deeply that the rest of the world simply ceased to exist. Gabriel led her to the bedroom, where they continued this intimate dance under the soft city lights. He touched her as if she were precious, but with an intensity that spoke of deep need. Marina responded with a passion that surprised her, as if her true nature was finally being unleashed. When they finally lay intertwined, Breaths still uneven, Marina rested her head on his chest and listened to the heart that had calmed along with hers. "I can't believe I did that," she murmured. "Do you regret it?" Gabriel asked, his fingers tracing soft patterns on her back. "No," Marina replied honestly. "Should I regret it?" "Not if I can help it," he said, kissing the top of her head. They talked until dawn, sharing stories, fears, dreams they had never revealed to anyone. Gabriel spoke about the pressure of growing up in a powerful family, about impossible expectations, and about how he had learned to use an emotional mask as armor. Marina told him about her humble childhood, about working since she was 15 to help her family, about dreams she seemed to always postpone in the name of responsibility. "You are extraordinary," Gabriel said, as he watched the sun rise through the panoramic windows. "I'm ordinary," Marina replied. "It's you who live in a bubble of privilege." "Perhaps," he admitted, "but you made me remember what it's like to be human." When Marina finally got up to get dressed, reality began to intrude. She had to go home, to her real life, to responsibilities that couldn't wait. Gabriel watched her get ready, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Can I see you again?" he asked. Marina hesitated. The night had been perfect, almost. Too magical to be real. Part of her wanted to preserve that memory untouched, without allowing reality to contaminate it. "Gabriel, we barely know each other." "Then let's get to know each other," he said, standing up and approaching her. "Dine with me tomorrow night. A simple place without all this glamour, just us two." Marina looked at the man who had transformed her night, who had made her feel desired, interesting, valuable. There was something about him that attracted her beyond appearance or money, a loneliness she recognized, a search for authenticity that mirrored her own. "All right," she said finally, "but I choose the place." Gabriel smiled, that devastating smile that seemed to transform his entire face. "Perfect." He accompanied her to the ground floor of the hotel, where he called a taxi. Before she got into the car, he gently pulled her in for one more kiss. "Until tomorrow, Marina." "Until tomorrow, Gabriel." As the taxi drove away, Marina looked through the rear window and saw Gabriel standing at the hotel entrance, watching her leave. There was something in his posture that suggested he too was trying to process what had happened between them. On the way home, Marina tried to organize her thoughts. Part of her was euphoric. She had spent the most intense night of her life with a fascinating and mysterious man. Another part was terrified by the intensity of her feelings. She wasn't the type of person who gave herself so easily. But there was something about Gabriel that had torn down all her defenses. The way he had protected her in the elevator, how he had truly listened to what she said, how he had made her feel like she was the only person that mattered in the world. Arriving at her modest apartment in Notting Hill, Marina looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman she saw there. There was something different in her eyes, a luminosity that wasn't there before. She had left the gala as Marina, the paralegal. She was returning home as a woman who had discovered a part of herself she didn't know existed. The phone rang, interrupting her reverie. It was her best friend, Caroline, obviously curious about how the night had been. "Marina, how was the event? Did you meet anyone interesting?" Marina smiled, still tasting Gabriel's kisses on her lips. "Caroline, I think I'm in love." 2 weeks had passed since that night at the Venetian Hotel, and Marina felt as if she were living in 2 parallel realities. During the day, she tried to maintain normality at the law firm, organizing cases, conducting legal research, answering the phone. But her mind constantly wandered to Gabriel. The way he held her hand, how his eyes lit up when she spoke about her dreams, how he made her feel like she was the most fascinating woman in the world. They had met 3 times since that first night. Dinners at small restaurants she chose, far from his world and close to hers. Gabriel seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her real life, the modest apartment she shared with Caroline, the corner pub where she used to study, the small bookstore where she spent Sundays browsing books she couldn't afford. He never talked much about his own work, always deflecting the conversation to her or to general topics. Marina began to suspect he was married, perhaps with a complicated family he couldn't mention. The possibility bothered her, but not enough to make her stop seeing him, because, with Gabriel, she felt complete in a way she had never experienced. He didn't try to impress her with money or power. Instead, he seemed genuinely interested in her opinions, her experiences, her dreams. They talked about everything: politics, philosophy, literature, social justice. He challenged her ideas without disrespecting them, offered perspectives that made her think in new ways. And physically? Marina blushed just thinking about the intensity of their nights together. Gabriel touched her as if she were a rare work of art, but with a passion that left her breathless. He knew her body better than she knew exactly how to make her lose control. It was on a Thursday morning that everything changed. Marina was at the office, organizing documents for a corporate fraud case the firm had accepted, when the phone rang. "Marina Olivia Stone?" an official voice asked from the other end of the line. "Yes, that's me. This is Bailiff Robert Stone. You have been summoned as a witness in case number 2024 Oaks 0031 57892, pending in the 14th Criminal Court. Can I come over to deliver the summons?" Marina felt a chill in her stomach. "Witness for what?" "It's about the case of the company where you worked as an intern 3 years ago, Millennium Construction. A public tender fraud scheme, do you remember?" Of course she remembered. She had worked there for only 6 months, a poorly paid internship, where she witnessed some irregularities that at the time she didn't know how to interpret. Strange meetings, disappearing documents, whispered conversations that stopped when she entered the room. Yes, I remember. But I was just an intern. I didn't know anything important. You'll need to tell that to the judge, Mrs. Stone. Can I stop by in an hour?" Marina hung up, the phone with trembling hands. This couldn't be happening. She had convinced herself that the strange things she had witnessed at Millennium were just her imagination, the paranoia of an inexperienced young woman. The bailiff arrived punctually an hour later, delivering a formal summons that called her to testify the following Monday, at 2 p.m., in the 14th Criminal Court. Marina read the document several times, trying to absorb the information. The case involved overbilling schemes, manipulation of public tenders, and cartel formation. The amounts mentioned were astronomical, millions of pounds diverted from public works that should benefit the population. "Dr. Morrison," she called the senior partner of the firm, "could you take a look at this?" Henry Morrison was an experienced lawyer in his 60s who had become a paternal figure to Marina since she started working there. He read the summons with increasing attention. "Marina, do you remember what kind of things you saw at Millennium? This is very serious." "I was just an intern, Dr. Morrison. I answered the phone, organized files. But I remember some strange meetings. Men in suits who spoke softly, documents that were kept with great secrecy, spreadsheets that only certain people could see." "Did you ever see those spreadsheets?" Marina hesitated. "Once, yes, by accident. They left them open on the computer and I saw some strange numbers, very high values for works that I knew were small, but at the time I thought it was just my inexperience." Dr. Morrison frowned. "You'll need to tell all this to the judge. And Marina, do you know who the judge responsible for this case is?" "No. Why?" Henry typed on the computer, accessing the High Court system. "Let's see, case 2024-031 57892. Here it is. The presiding judge is Justice Gabriel Maxwell Thorne." Marina's world stopped. Gabriel. Her Gabriel. The man who had held her hand through claustrophobia, who had spent the last 2 weeks making her feel like the most loved woman in the world, who knew every inch of her body and every secret of her soul. Gabriel was a judge, and she would be a witness in a case he would preside over. "Marina, are you okay? You look pale." I know this judge," she managed to say, her voice coming out as a whisper. "How do you know him?" We had a relationship in the last few weeks." The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Morrison looked at her with an expression that mixed shock, concern, and something that seemed like professional terror. "Marina," he said slowly, "tell me you're joking." "I'm not." "My God." Dr. Morrison stood up, beginning to pace back and forth. This is a disaster. If anyone finds out... But we didn't know. It wasn't planned. We met at a social event. It had nothing to do with work. It doesn't matter, Marina. You have a personal relationship, and now you're going to testify in a case he's presiding over. This is a conflict of interest in its purest form. If this leaks, both your credibilities will be ruined. He could be removed from the case, his career could be jeopardized, you could be accused of trying to influence the proceedings. Marina felt the ground open beneath her feet. What do I do? First, you need to end this relationship, immediately. And second, you cannot mention this to anyone, ever. Do you understand? No one can know you know each other. But I need to tell him. He has a right to know. Absolutely not, Dr. Morrison was emphatic. If you tell him, it could be interpreted as an attempt to influence the judgment. Marina, listen to what I'm saying. Your entire career is at stake here, and so is his. Marina left the office in a state of shock. She walked through the streets of London aimlessly, trying to process the information she had just received. How was it possible that fate was so cruel? She had found the love of her life, a connection that seemed impossible in its purity and intensity, only to discover that this love could destroy them both. The phone rang. It was Gabriel. "Hi, beautiful." His voice was affectionate, intimate. "How was your day?" Marina almost collapsed. How could she answer that question? How could she pretend that nothing had changed when her whole world had fallen apart? "It was normal," she managed to say. "Want to have dinner with me tonight? I found a small Peruvian restaurant I think you'll love." "Gabriel, I can't." There was a pause. "Is everything okay? You sound strange." "I'm just tired. It was a difficult day at work." "Then let's go to my apartment. I can give you a massage, you can relax." "No," she said louder than she intended. "No, thank you. I think I need to be alone today." Another pause, longer this time. "Marina, did something happen? You're scaring me." Marina closed her eyes, trying to find the strength to do what needed to be done. "Gabriel, I think we need to take a break." The silence on the other end was devastating. "A break?" he repeated, as if he hadn't understood. "Where is this coming from? Last night you told me you were—" "I know what I said," Marina interrupted him, each word like a dagger in her own chest. "But I was confused. This is all happening too fast. Marina, look at me." Gabriel's voice was becoming desperate. "Where are you? I'll pick you up and we'll talk in person." "No, please, Gabriel. I need space." "Space for what? What changed in less than 24 hours? Marina was crying now, silent tears she tried to control so he wouldn't notice in her voice. "Nothing changed. Everything changed. I can't do this." "Do what? Love me?" "Because that's what you were doing, Marina, and I was loving you back." His words were like a bullet to her heart. It was the first time either of them had used the word love, and it came at the moment Marina was being forced to destroy everything. "Gabriel, please." "No," he said firmly. "I don't accept this. I'm coming to your house, now." "If you come, I won't answer the door," Marina said, hating every word that came out of her mouth. "Gabriel, it's over." She hung up the phone and immediately blocked him, then blocked his number on all social media. It was the hardest thing she had ever done in her entire life. But Dr. Morrison had been clear. She could not have any more contact with Gabriel. The phone rang several times in the following minutes. He was trying to call from other numbers. Marina ignored all calls. Finally, a message arrived from an unknown number. "Marina, I don't understand what's happening, but I won't give up on us. I love you. When you're ready to talk for real, I'll be here. G." Marina read the message about 20 times before deleting it, each word digging deeper into her broken heart. The next few days were hell. Marina could barely eat, sleep, or concentrate at work. Caroline tried to talk to her, but Marina couldn't reveal the truth. How could she explain that she had fallen in love with a man who she now discovered was the judge of a case where she would be a witness? Gabriel continued to try to contact her. Flowers arrived at the office with handwritten cards. Messages from different numbers appeared on her phone. Once, she saw him standing in front of her apartment building, clearly waiting for her. Marina hid at the window until he left. Her heart shattered seeing his defeated posture as he walked to his car. The hearing was approaching, and Marina was in a panic. How could she sit before Gabriel, look into the eyes of the man she loved, and pretend he was just a stranger? How could she answer his questions about a criminal case, knowing that every word could affect not only the proceedings, but their future together? Dr. Morrison prepared her for the testimony, rehearsing possible questions and answers. He even hired a psychologist to help her deal with the stress of the situation. "Remember," he said on the eve of the hearing, "you do not know Justice Gabriel Maxwell Thorne. Personally, you have never met before. You will answer only the questions asked objectively and honestly about what you saw at Millennium. Nothing more. What if he recognizes me? He is an experienced professional. He will maintain his composure just like you." On the morning of the hearing, Marina chose a conservative business outfit, a black skirt, a grey blazer, her hair pulled back in a bun. Nothing that could remind him of the sensual woman Gabriel had known. She needed to be just the witness Marina Stone, not the Marina he had held in his arms whispering words of love. The Old Bailey in London was an imposing building, full of corridors that echoed hurried footsteps of lawyers, prosecutors, and people seeking justice. Marina arrived half an hour before the scheduled time, accompanied by Dr. Morrison. "Breathe," he said when he noticed she was hyperventilating. "You'll get through this." At exactly 2 p.m., the bailiff called her to enter the courtroom. Marina stood up on trembling legs and walked towards the door that separated her from Gabriel. The room was full: prosecutors, defense attorneys, defendants, other judges, clerks. And there, behind the judge's bench, was him. Gabriel saw her the moment she entered. Marina noticed the shock in his eyes, the way he stiffened in his chair. For a fraction of a second, their professional masks fell, and she saw pure pain etched on his face. But Gabriel was truly an experienced professional. He recomposed his expression in seconds, adopting the formal and distant demeanor of a magistrate. "Witness Marina Olivia Stone," he said, his voice perfectly controlled. "Please approach the witness stand." Marina walked to the indicated chair, feeling as if she were floating. She was less than 3 meters from the man she loved, who had touched every inch of her body, who knew her deepest fears and most intimate dreams, and now they had to pretend they were strangers. "Marital status?" Gabriel asked, reading from a standard form. "Single. Occupation? Paralegal." Their voices were formal, professional, devoid of any emotion. But Marina could see the tension in his jaw, the way he avoided looking directly at her for too long. The prosecutor began the interrogation, asking about her time at Millennium Construction. Marina answered carefully, describing the irregularities she had witnessed. Secret meetings, documents kept with excessive secrecy, conversations that stopped when she approached. "Did you see any specific document that you considered suspicious?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes, a cost spreadsheet that was open on the computer. The values seemed very high for the type of work being carried out." "Do you remember any specific details of that spreadsheet?" Marina hesitated. This was the crucial part of her testimony, the information that could really impact the case. She could feel Gabriel watching her intensely, but she didn't dare to look at him. "I remember they were values for construction materials, but the prices were at least 300% above what would be normal in the market. And there were notes in the margins about distribution and quotas." A murmur ran through the room. This was new information, not in the case files. The defense attorney stood up for cross-examination. He tried to question Marina's memory, suggest that she was confusing information, insinuate that a simple intern would not have enough knowledge to interpret complex documents. "Mrs. Stone," the attorney said condescendingly, "do you really believe that an inexperienced intern could understand engineering and budgeting spreadsheets?" "Objection," the prosecutor said. "The witness is reporting what she saw, not interpreting technical documents." "Sustained," Gabriel said, his voice firm. "Rephrase the question." It was the first time Marina heard him speak as a judge, and the authority in his voice surprised her. This was not the affectionate and vulnerable Gabriel she knew. This was Justice Gabriel Maxwell Thorne, a respected and feared magistrate. The interrogation continued for another 40 minutes. Marina answered all questions honestly, but the tension in the room was palpable. She could feel Gabriel struggling to maintain professional composure. She could see the way he held his pen tighter than necessary. When she was finally dismissed, Marina stood up and walked towards the exit without looking back. But at the door she couldn't resist. She turned to take one last look at the man she loved and found his eyes fixed on her. For a second, all masks fell again. Gabriel looked at her with a mixture of love, pain, confusion, and something that seemed like anger. Not anger at her, but at the impossible situation they found themselves in. Marina left the room with tears streaming down her face. Outside, Dr. Morrison was waiting for her. "You did very well," he said. "You were brave." "Henry," Marina said, her voice choked, "I love him. And I just destroyed any chance of us being together." "Marina, he knows now. Gabriel knows, that's why I ended everything. He's going to try to find me. And you cannot speak to him. Ever. The proceedings are still ongoing, Marina. If anyone finds out about the two of you—" Marina nodded, knowing Dr. Morrison was right. But how could she live knowing that she had found the love of her life, only to be forced to destroy it with her own hands? That night, alone in her apartment, Marina received a message from a number she didn't recognize. "Now, understand. Forgive me for insisting. But this is not over, Marina. When this process is finished, we will talk. I love you more than my career, more than my reputation, more than anything. Wait for me. G." Marina read the message about 20 times before deleting it, each word digging deeper into her broken heart. The next few days were hell. Marina could barely eat, sleep, or concentrate at work. Caroline tried to talk to her, but Marina couldn't reveal the truth. How could she explain that she had fallen in love with a man who she now discovered was the judge of a case where she would be a witness? Gabriel continued to try to contact her. Flowers arrived at the office with handwritten cards. Messages from different numbers appeared on her phone. Once, she saw him standing in front of her apartment building, clearly waiting for her. Marina hid at the window until he left, her heart shattered, seeing his defeated posture as he walked to his car. The hearing was approaching, and Marina was in a panic. How could she sit before Gabriel, look into the eyes of the man she loved, and pretend he was just a stranger? How could she answer his questions about a criminal case knowing that every word could affect not only the proceedings, but their future together? Dr. Morrison prepared her for the testimony, rehearsing possible questions and answers. He even hired a psychologist to help her deal with the stress of the situation. "Remember," he said on the eve of the hearing, "you do not know Justice Gabriel Maxwell Thorne personally. You have never met before. You will answer only the questions asked objectively and honestly about what you saw at Millennium, nothing more. What if he recognizes me? He is an experienced professional. He will maintain his composure just like you." On the morning of the hearing, Marina chose a conservative business outfit, a black skirt, a grey blazer, her hair pulled back in a bun. Nothing that could remind him of the sensual woman Gabriel had known. She needed to be just the witness Marina Stone, not the Marina he had held in his arms, whispering words of love. The Old Bailey in London was an imposing building, full of corridors that echoed hurried footsteps of lawyers, prosecutors, and people seeking justice. Marina arrived half an hour before the scheduled time, accompanied by Dr. Morrison. "Breathe," he said when he noticed she was hyperventilating. "You'll get through this." At exactly 9 a.m., the bailiff called her to enter the courtroom. Marina stood up on trembling legs and walked towards the door that separated her from Gabriel. The room was full. Prosecutors, defense attorneys, defendants, other judges, clerks. And there, behind the judge's bench, was him. Gabriel saw her the moment she entered. Marina noticed the shock in his eyes, the way he stiffened in his chair. For a fraction of a second, their professional masks fell and she saw pure pain etched on his face. But Gabriel was truly an experienced professional. He recomposed his expression in seconds, adopting the formal and distant demeanor of a magistrate. "Witness Marina Olivia Stone," he said, his voice perfectly controlled. "Please approach the witness stand." Marina walked to the indicated chair, feeling as if she were floating. She was less than 3 meters from the man she loved, who had touched every inch of her body, who knew her deepest fears and most intimate dreams, and now they had to pretend they were strangers. "Marital status?" Gabriel asked, reading from a standard form. "Single. Occupation? Paralegal." Their voices were formal, professional, devoid of any emotion. But Marina could see the tension in his jaw, the way he avoided looking directly at her for too long. The prosecutor began the interrogation, asking about her time at Millennium Construction. Marina answered carefully, describing the irregularities she had witnessed: secret meetings, documents kept with excessive secrecy, conversations that stopped when she approached. "Did you see any specific document that you considered suspicious?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes, a cost spreadsheet that was open on the computer. The values seemed very high for the type of work being carried out. Do you remember any specific details of that spreadsheet?" Marina hesitated. This was the crucial part of her testimony, the information that could really impact the case. She could feel Gabriel watching her intensely, but she didn't dare to look at him. "I remember they were values for construction materials, but the prices were at least 300% above what would be normal in the market, and there were notes in the margins about distribution and quotas." A murmur ran through the room. This was new information, not in the case files. The defense attorney stood up for cross-examination. He tried to question Marina's memory, suggest that she was confusing information, insinuate that a simple intern would not have enough knowledge to interpret complex documents. "Ms. Stone," the attorney said condescendingly, "do you really believe that an inexperienced intern could understand engineering and budgeting spreadsheets?" "Objection," the prosecutor said. "The witness is reporting what she saw, not interpreting technical documents." "Sustained," Gabriel said, his voice firm. "Rephrase the question." It was the first time Marina heard him speak as a judge, and the authority in his voice surprised her. This was not the affectionate and vulnerable Gabriel she knew. This was Justice Gabriel Maxwell Thorne, a respected and feared magistrate. The interrogation continued for another 2 hours. Marina repeated the same denials, increasingly desperate, while the prosecutor presented evidence after evidence. The lawyer hired by Dr. Morrison tried to object, but the evidence seemed too solid. That's when Gabriel did something unexpected. "Dr. Fletcher," he said, interrupting the prosecutor in the middle of a question, "may I examine the originals of these emails?" "Of course, Your Honor. They are all here." Gabriel took the documents and examined them with microscopic attention. Marina watched him, noticing how he frowned, how his eyes scanned each line with an investigator's care. "Were these documents subjected to forensic document examination?" Gabriel asked. "We didn't deem it necessary, Your Honor. They are authenticated digital documents." "And digital forensics to verify authenticity?" The prosecutor hesitated. "Not that either, sir. As I said, digital authentication is sufficient." Gabriel stood up, an unusual posture for a judge during a hearing. He walked to his desk and picked up a magnifying glass, examining the printed documents even more carefully. "Dr. Fletcher," he said finally, "how long have these documents been in the possession of the prosecution?" "They were delivered a week ago by the Metropolitan Police, Your Honor." "And how long has the Metropolitan Police had them?" "According to the report, they were seized 15 days ago from the defendant's, pardon me, the witness's computer." Gabriel made a note. "Strange, because according to the metadata I'm seeing here, these files were created only 10 days ago." A heavy silence filled the room. The prosecutor paled. "Your Honor, there must be some mistake." "There is no mistake, Dr. Fletcher. I am clearly seeing that these documents were created after they were supposedly seized." Gabriel turned to the room, and Marina saw a transformation happen before her eyes. The cold, impartial judge was being replaced by something more dangerous, a man in search of the truth. "There are more strange things," Gabriel continued. The formatting of the emails does not match the pattern of the indicated provider. The fonts used were not standard in 2021, the year they were supposedly written. And most importantly, he picked up one of the spreadsheets. This digital signature was generated with a certificate that only came into existence in 2023. The murmur in the room turned into agitation. Journalists whispered among themselves. Lawyers exchanged worried glances. The prosecutor tried to recover. "Your Honor, even if there are technical irregularities, the content of the emails—" "The content is irrelevant if the documents are forged," Gabriel said, elevating his voice. "Dr. Fletcher, are you presenting false evidence in my court?" "No, sir. These documents were delivered by the police." Gabriel turned to the clerk. "I want an immediate investigation into the origin of these documents, and I want the detective responsible for the case here now." It was then that Gabriel did the unthinkable. He took off his robe. The gesture caused absolute silence in the room. A judge removing his robe during a hearing was practically unprecedented. "Before proceeding," Gabriel said, his voice echoing through the silent room, "I need to make a statement." Marina felt her heart stop. He wasn't going to do it. He couldn't. "I, Gabriel Maxwell Thorne, Justice of this circuit, declare that I have a personal involvement with the witness, Marina Stone." The impact was immediate. Journalists stood up, cameras turned, a buzz filled the room. The bailiff tried to maintain order. "We met 4 months ago," Gabriel continued, ignoring the chaos around him. "We maintained a personal relationship that was interrupted when we found out about these proceedings. Marina Stone blocked me and completely withdrew when she learned that I would be the presiding judge for this case." The prosecutor was livid. "Your Honor, this is the truth, Dr. Fletcher, and based on this truth and my intimate knowledge of Marina Stone's character, I can categorically state that this woman is incapable of committing the crimes of which she is being accused." Marina was openly crying now. Gabriel had just destroyed his own career to defend her. "More than that," Gabriel continued, "as someone who intimately knows Marina Stone's habits and capabilities, I can state that she does not possess the technical knowledge to elaborate schemes as sophisticated as those described in these forged emails." "Objection!" shouted the prosecutor. "The judge cannot—" "There is no objection that holds, Dr. Fletcher. I am recusing myself and requesting my removal from the case. But before that, I order the immediate arrest of all those involved in the falsification of these proofs." It was at this moment that the courtroom doors opened and a group of men in suits entered hurriedly. The leader, a tall man about 45 years old, addressed Gabriel directly. "Justice Gabriel, I am Federal Agent Mark Riley. I need to speak with you urgently." Gabriel motioned for him to approach. They spoke in whispers for a few minutes, while the room remained in tense silence. When Gabriel turned back to the hearing, his expression had transformed again. Now there was relentless determination in his eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we have just received information that this entire process was manipulated from the beginning. The National Crime Agency is investigating a scheme of evidence falsification that involves members of the prosecution, the Metropolitan Police, and powerful figures in the construction sector." Prosecutor Fletcher tried to stand up, but 2 federal agents were already behind him. "Dr. Marcus Fletcher," said the federal agent, "you are under arrest for falsification of documents, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice." Chaos erupted in the room. Journalists shouted questions, lawyers whispered desperately, defendants tried to understand what was happening. Gabriel addressed Marina, who was still in the witness stand in complete shock. "Ms. Stone," he said formally, but with eyes full of tenderness, "you are free of all charges. The evidence against you has been proven to be forged." Marina couldn't get up. Her legs simply wouldn't respond. Gabriel had ruined his career to save her. He had exposed himself publicly, admitted their relationship, destroyed his impeccable reputation, all to protect her. The federal agent approached her. "Miss Stone, we need your collaboration. We found that you were targeted by this scheme for a specific reason. Someone wanted to get to Justice Gabriel through you." "Get to Gabriel? Why?" "Because," a familiar voice said from the back of the room, Our dear judge was getting too close to the truth about who is really behind. Operation Rotten Foundation. Marina turned and saw a man she vaguely recognized. He had been present at some of the strange meetings at Millennium Construction. He was being escorted by 2 federal agents, but he smiled as if he had won some game. The scheme was never about Millennium, he continued. It was about destroying Gabriel Maxwell Thorne before he discovered that some of the companies involved belonged to very powerful people. People who cannot afford to be investigated. Gabriel descended from the judge's bench and walked to Marina. For the first time in months, they were face without professional barriers. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, ignoring the cameras and journalists around them. Marina nodded, still unable to speak. Gabriel extended his hand to help her stand up. "Gabriel," she managed to whisper, "your career." "My career is worth nothing without you," he replied, loud enough for half the room to hear. The federal agent approached again. "Justice Gabriel, Ms. Stone, both of you are in danger. The scheme we uncovered involves very powerful people, and they won't like seeing their plans collapse. We will need to place you under police protection." Gabriel looked at Marina. "Do you trust me?" For the first time in months, Marina truly smiled. "I always have." As they were escorted out of the courthouse by the federal agents, Gabriel held Marina's hand firmly. They had lost much. His career, both their reputations, months of separation and pain. But they had found something more valuable, the certainty that their love was stronger than any conspiracy, more important than any career. The truth was finally beginning to emerge, but Marina knew that the real fight was only just beginning, and this time they would face everything together. The house was on, an isolated beach in Cornwall, hidden among palm trees and dense vegetation that made it practically invisible from the road. It was a property of the National Crime Agency, used for witness protection, but for Marina and Gabriel, in the first hours after leaving the courthouse, it seemed more like a forced exile than a refuge. Gabriel was sitting on the terrace overlooking the sea, still wearing his formal hearing suit, but with his tie undone and sleeves rolled up. The contrast between his relaxed posture and the tension in his shoulders revealed the weight of what had happened. "You destroyed everything," Marina said, approaching him for the first time since they had arrived. "Your career, your reputation, everything." Gabriel didn't turn to look at her. "I didn't destroy anything that truly mattered." "Gabriel, you were a High Court justice. You were being considered for the Supreme Court. You threw everything away for you." Now he turned, and Marina saw in his eyes a conviction that left her speechless. "I threw everything away for you, and I would do it again 1,000 times over." Marina felt tears well up. "I tried to protect you. That's why I blocked you, why I pulled away. I knew that if they found out about us—" "I know." Gabriel stood up and walked to her. "And you tried to do the right thing, but I couldn't let you be destroyed by a lie, not when I knew the truth." "And what is the truth, Gabriel?" He gently touched her face. "That I love you more than any career, more than any position, more than my own life." Before Marina could respond, Agent Mark Riley appeared at the terrace door. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need to talk. We've discovered things you need to know." They gathered in the main living room of the house, where Mark had set up a kind of improvised command center. There were computers, documents spread across the tables, and maps of London taped to the wall. "The scheme is much bigger than we imagined," Mark began. "Millennium Construction was just the tip of the iceberg. We've uncovered a corruption network involving at least 12 construction companies, half a dozen local councillors, 3 mayors, and 2 appeal court justices." Gabriel leaned over the documents. 2 appeal court justices? Who? "Justice Augustus Farrell and Justice Robert Sampson. Both have a history of favourable decisions for the companies involved in the scheme." Marina recognized the names. Justice Farrell is known for overturning first-instance sentences in tender cases, always alleging procedural irregularities. "Exactly," Mark confirmed, and Justice Gabriel was about to discover that. His investigations in Operation Rotten Foundation were connecting dots they didn't want connected. "That's why they framed Marina," Gabriel understood. "Did they know about our relationship?" Mark hesitated. They didn't know initially, but they hired private detectives to investigate your personal life, looking for some way to discredit you. When they found out about Marina, and that she had worked at Millennium, they thought they had found the perfect weapon. A double weapon, Marina murmured, using the lies about me to destroy Gabriel and at the same time discredit any investigation he might undertake. Precisely. If they could prove that the two of you were conspiring from the start, Gabriel would be removed for corruption, Marina would be arrested for conspiracy, and the Rotten Foundation case would be transferred to a judge they could control. Gabriel stood up and began to pace the room. Who is behind this? Who has enough power to coordinate such a complex operation? Mark exchanged glances with his partner, Federal Agent Liam, who was operating one of the computers. That's the tricky part, Mark said. It's not one person, it's a group. They call themselves the Prosperity Circle. Businessmen, politicians, and magistrates who meet regularly to, let's say, coordinate mutual interests. A cartel of institutionalized corruption, Gabriel said, his voice laden with disgust. The problem is, they have tentacles at all levels of government. Investigating them will be like dismantling a ticking time bomb. One wrong move and everything explodes. Marina felt a chill in her stomach. How dangerous is this for us? Very, Liam replied bluntly. We've already intercepted 3 phone conversations discussing permanent solutions for the two of you. That's why you're here, under protection. The silence that followed was heavy. Gabriel approached Marina and held her hand. How long do we need to stay hidden? It depends, Mark said. We're setting up a joint operation with the Crown Prosecution Service and the National Audit Office. But we need irrefutable evidence before we act, and for that we need your collaboration. What kind of collaboration? Mark opened a laptop and showed a screen full of scanned documents. Marina, you said you saw spreadsheets at Millennium. Specific descriptions could help us find the original documents on the company's servers. And Gabriel, your knowledge of the cases that pass through your court can help us identify patterns of favoritism. Marina looked at the documents on the screen. I remember some things, but it was 3 years ago. Any detail can be crucial, Mark insisted. In the following hours, Marina and Gabriel worked with the federal team, reconstructing memories and analyzing documents. Marina was able to accurately describe some of the spreadsheets she had seen, including specific codes she had memorized by chance. Gabriel identified patterns in several sentences he had reviewed, decisions that seemed to deviate from the normal standard. This is gold, Liam said, examining the notes. With this information, we can get search and seizure warrants for the company's offices and even for the justices' homes. It was almost midnight when the federal team finally retired to their rooms in the adjacent house. Marina and Gabriel were alone for the first time since that morning in court. I can't believe we're living this, Marina said, collapsing onto the sofa. Gabriel sat beside her. It feels surreal, doesn't it? Yesterday morning, I was a respected judge, you were a protected witness. Today we're fugitives from the law. Not fugitives, protected. The difference is subtle. They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the sound of the sea waves outside. Gabriel, Marina said finally, do you regret it? Regret what? Defending me in court, exposing yourself like that. Gabriel turned to face her completely. Marina, look at me. Listen to what I'm going to say and believe it. I don't regret a second of it. When I saw you being accused of those things, when I saw the tears on your face, I would rather die than stay silent. But your career, my career means nothing without you, and you know what I discovered today. Maybe I should never have been a judge in the first place. Marina frowned. What do you mean? Gabriel stood up and walked to the window overlooking the sea. To be a judge means to be impartial, neutral, cold. It means putting the law above everything. But when it comes to you, Marina, I cannot be neutral. I can be fair, but not impartial. And perhaps that is more important. Gabriel, you know what else? Today in court, when I took off that robe, it was the first time in years I felt truly free, as if I was finally being myself, not what they expected me to be. Marina stood up and went to him. And who are you really? Gabriel smiled. That smile she had first seen in the elevator of the Venetian Hotel, an eternity ago. I am a man who is madly in love with a courageous woman who fights for justice, a man who wants to protect her, support her, stand by her in every battle. Marina gently touched his face. And I'm a woman who is madly in love with a man who sacrificed everything for her, a man of integrity who chose the truth when he could have chosen safety. The kiss that followed was different from all the others they had shared. There was no desperate urgency like on the first night, nor the sadness of forced separation. There was something deeper, the certainty that they had found something rare and precious, something worth any sacrifice. When they separated, Gabriel rested his forehead on hers. "Promise me one thing," he said. "What?" "That, when all this is over, we'll start over. No courts, no trials, no all this chaos. Just you and me discovering who we are together." "I promise," Marina said, "but first we need to finish this. We need to make sure these people pay for what they did." Gabriel nodded. "We will destroy them. Legally appropriately, but we will destroy them." The following days turned into an intense routine of investigative work. Marina and Gabriel became unofficial members of the National Crime Agency team, helping to connect dots and identify patterns. The beach house became a kind of improvised headquarters. Marina discovered she had an exceptional memory for financial details. She could recall specific numbers from the spreadsheets she had seen years ago, codes that led the federal team directly to the servers where the original documents were hidden. Gabriel revealed an impressive knowledge of jurisprudence and legal precedents. He could identify exactly where and how the suspicious decisions deviated from normal patterns, providing clear evidence of favoritism. "You two are a formidable pair," Mark commented one afternoon, watching them work together with natural synchronicity. "What do you mean?" Marina asked. "She has an eye for numbers and financial details," Mark explained. "He has the deep legal knowledge. Together you can see the complete picture that none of us could see alone." It was true. Marina and Gabriel developed a working dynamic that was almost telepathic. She identified financial irregularities. He translated those irregularities into specific legal violations. It was as if they were two halves of the same investigator. But there were also the private moments, walks on the beach at the end of the day, when they could talk about things that didn't involve conspiracy and corruption. Gabriel spoke about his privileged but lonely childhood, about the pressure of growing up in a family where success was the only acceptable option. Marina shared stories about her financial struggles, about working since she was a teenager to help her family, about dreams she had learned to keep to herself. "You know what's funny?" Gabriel said during one of those walks. "I always thought I needed status and power to be happy. Titles, recognition, social position. But here, in this simple house, working on an investigation that could destroy us, I've never felt so complete." "It's because you're finally fighting for something you believe in," Marina replied, "not out of obligation or expectation, but for true justice." "And because I'm fighting by your side," Gabriel added, stopping to kiss her gently. It was during the second week in the refuge that they received the news that would change everything. Mark came running from the back house where the communications center was located, his face tense with urgency. "We have a problem," he announced. "We intercepted a conversation 20 minutes ago. They found out where you are." Marina felt her blood run cold. "How?" "We don't know yet, but there's a convoy of cars heading here. They'll arrive in less than an hour." Gabriel stood up immediately. "How many cars?" "3, at least 6 armed men." "Are they police?" Mark's expression darkened. "We don't know. They could be corrupt police. They could be hired mercenaries. What we do know is they're coming for you." Marina felt panic begin to form, the same claustrophobic sensation from the elevator, but Gabriel held her hand firmly. "What do we do?" he asked Mark. "Immediate evacuation. We have a boat waiting on the beach. We'll take you to another safe house in Dorset." "What about the investigation?" "It continues. In fact, this proves we're on the right track. They would only react like this if they were desperate." As they quickly packed their bags, Marina couldn't stop thinking about how her life had become an action thriller. 6 months ago, her biggest concern was paying monthly bills. Now she was fleeing contract killers hired by a corruption cartel. "Ready?" Gabriel asked, appearing beside her with a small backpack. "I'll never be ready for this," Marina replied honestly. "Then let's be brave together." They descended to the beach under the darkness of night, guided only by the federal team's flashlights. The boat was a fast speedboat piloted by an agent specialized in aquatic operations. When they moved away from the coast, Marina looked back and saw car lights arriving at the house they had just abandoned. Her heart raced at the thought of what would have happened if they had stayed a few more minutes. "It's okay," Gabriel whispered in her ear, putting his arm around her shoulders. "We're safe." For how long? It was a question neither of them had an answer to. But as the speedboat cut through the waves towards an uncertain destination, Marina knew one thing with absolute certainty. No matter what happened, they would face it together. The love that had been born in a stopped elevator was growing stronger with each obstacle, deeper with each danger. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was strong enough to survive what was yet to come. The house in Dorset was even more isolated than the previous one, hidden in a private cove accessible only by boat. But this time, Marina and Gabriel arrived with the certainty that the situation was coming to an end, one way or another. Mark had received the green light from Whitehall to launch the final operation. 3 months of intense investigation, fueled by the information Marina and Gabriel provided, had produced enough evidence to bring down the entire corruption network. Operation Clean Foundation, Mark announced on Thursday morning, displaying the detailed operation map. 43 simultaneous arrest warrants in London, Manchester and Westminster. "We're going to arrest everyone from the businessmen to the justices, including all intermediaries." Gabriel studied the list of names. "When?" "Friday at 6 a.m. We want to catch everyone still at home without a chance to destroy evidence or flee." Marina felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "And then?" "Then you go back to your lives," Mark said with a smile. "As national heroes, I'd say." "We don't want to be heroes," Gabriel said. "We just want justice." "And you'll have it. But Gabriel, there's something I need to tell you. The Judicial Conduct and Appointments Commission has already commented on your case. Your conduct in court exposing the false evidence and recusing yourself was considered exemplary. They want to reinstate you." Gabriel exchanged glances with Marina. "Reinstate me as what?" "As an appeal court justice in the High Court of London. Considering you helped expose the largest judicial corruption network in history, they believe you deserve a promotion, not a punishment." The silence that followed was heavy. Marina knew that was everything Gabriel had ever dreamed of. Being an appeal court justice before 45 was an extraordinary achievement. "I need to think," Gabriel said finally. "Of course, but don't take too long. The swearing-in ceremony would be next Monday." That night, Marina and Gabriel walked along the private beach, talking about the future unfolding before them. "Are you going to accept?" Marina asked. "It depends." "On what?" Gabriel stopped walking and turned to her. "On you wanting to build a life alongside an appeal. Court justice. It's a public life, Marina. Social events, media pressure, constant expectations. It won't be easy." Marina smiled. "Gabriel, we survived a corruption conspiracy. We were chased by assassins, and we spent 3 months living as fugitives. Do you think I care about social events?" "When you put it that way. Besides," Marina continued, "I have my own plans. Dr. Morrison offered me a partnership in the firm. With all the media exposure, our credibility is high. I can finally open my own anti-corruption department." Gabriel kissed her softly. "Then let's do it. Let's be the most feared couple by the corrupt in the country." "I promise we'll make their lives hell," Marina laughed. Operation Clean Foundation was launched precisely at 6 a.m. on Friday. Marina and Gabriel watched on television from the comfort of the house in Dorset as images of the arrests were broadcast live. Justice Augustus Farrell was arrested in his pajamas in his mansion in the Hamptons. Justice Robert Sampson tried to flee through the back of his house but was captured by agents. Prosecutor Marcus Fletcher, who was already imprisoned since the day of the court, had his arrest converted to a closed regime. But the most satisfying arrest for Marina was that of Edward Miller, the true leader of the Prosperity Circle. A discreet businessman who controlled one of the country's largest construction companies and who had orchestrated the entire frame-up against them. "That was him," Marina said, pointing to the television where Miller was being led away in handcuffs. "I remember him. He was the one who commanded the meetings at Millennium." "He won't be commanding anything anymore," Gabriel said with satisfaction. The results of the operation exceeded all expectations. In addition to the arrests, over $2 billion in suspicious accounts were frozen, dozens of properties seized, and schemes dating back more than 10 years of systematized corruption were uncovered. During the weekend, Marina and Gabriel received visits from journalists, federal prosecutors, and even the Secretary of State for Justice, who personally came to thank them for their collaboration. "The entire country owes you two," the minister said. "Without your courage, this network would continue to operate for decades." "We just did what was right," Marina replied. "Exactly, and for that you are heroes." On Monday, Gabriel was sworn in as an appeal court justice in a solemn ceremony at the High Court of London. Marina was in the front row, proud, wearing a navy blue dress that Gabriel had chosen especially for the occasion. "Justice Gabriel Maxwell Thorne," said the president of the court during the ceremony, "your exemplary conduct in the case known as Operation Clean Foundation demonstrated that British justice has men of integrity and courage. It is an honor to have you with us." When Gabriel took his oath, Marina felt tears of emotion streaming down her face. That man had risked everything for her, had sacrificed his career to protect her, and now was being recognized not only for his competence but for his integrity. After the ceremony, there was a reception at the courthouse itself. Marina circulated alongside Gabriel, meeting fellow justices, prosecutors, and lawyers. It was a world that still intimidated her a bit, but she knew she would learn to navigate it. "Miss Stone," a voice said behind her. Marina turned and found an elegant woman in her 50s. "I am Justice Helen Marks. I wanted to thank you personally." "Thank me for what?" "For restoring credibility to our court. What you and Gabriel did, it wasn't just courageous, it was necessary." Marina smiled, shyly. "We just did what was right." "Exactly. And we hope you continue to do so." As the reception continued, Gabriel was approached by the president of the court. "Gabriel, I need to speak with you privately." They moved to a more reserved corner of the room. "What happened?" "I have a proposal. The Supreme Court of the United Kingdom is considering your nomination for a vacancy that will open next year. It would be the crowning achievement of an exemplary career." Gabriel looked across the room at Marina, who was talking animatedly with Justice Helen. "It's an honor, Dr. Caldwell. But may I ask for some time to consider?" "Of course, but Gabriel, an opportunity like this doesn't come twice." "I know, and I will consider it with the care it deserves." The truth was that Gabriel had other plans for the near future, plans that involved a very important question for Marina. 2 weeks after the swearing-in, on a rainy Thursday in December, Gabriel called Marina at the office. "Want to have dinner with me tonight?" "Of course, where?" "It's a surprise. Meet me at the Venetian Hotel at 8 o'clock. Marina frowned. "At the Venetian Hotel?" "Gabriel, you know that place brings back memories." "Trust me," Marina smiled. It was the same question he had asked on their first night, when he invited her up to his apartment. "I always trust you." At exactly 8 o'clock, Marina arrived at the luxurious hotel where everything had begun. She was wearing an elegant black dress, her hair loosely brushed, soft makeup. She had learned to feel comfortable in that kind of environment, especially beside Gabriel. Gabriel was waiting for her in the lobby, impeccable in a dark suit, but there was something different about him, a nervousness she rarely saw. "Are you okay?" Marina asked, kissing him lightly. "Perfectly fine, shall we?" Instead of heading to the hotel restaurant, Gabriel led her to the elevators. Marina felt a pang of nostalgia as the doors closed. "It's strange to be here again," she commented. "For me too," Gabriel agreed. "But there was something I needed to do here." The elevator went directly to the top floor, to Gabriel's private apartment. The doors opened, revealing the space Marina knew well, but which was different tonight. The entire apartment was lit with candles, hundreds of them, creating a golden and romantic atmosphere. The dining table was set for two with fine crystals and a chilled bottle of champagne, and through the panoramic windows, the city of London stretched out like a sea of stars. "Gabriel," Marina murmured, touched by the beauty of the decoration. "Marina," he said, taking her hands, "it was here that my life changed forever. It was here that I found the woman who made me discover who I really am." "Gabriel, what are you doing?" Instead of answering, Gabriel knelt down. Marina felt her heart stop. There he was, the man she had met on a night of panic in the elevator, who had become her refuge, her passion, her partner in everything. The man who had sacrificed his career for her and emerged even stronger. "Marina Olivia Stone," Gabriel said, taking a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "You transformed my life in ways I didn't even know were possible. You taught me that loving is more important than winning, that truth is worth more than convenience, that two people together can face any storm." Marina was crying now, tears of pure emotion streaming down her face. "I spent my whole life seeking status, power, recognition. But I discovered that all of that is worth nothing without someone to share it with. And I don't want to share it with just anyone, Marina. I want to share it with you." Gabriel opened the box, revealing a dazzling engagement ring, a classic solitaire diamond, elegant without being ostentatious. "Will you marry me? Will you build a life by my side? Will you continue fighting for justice, confronting the corrupt, and making this country a better place?" Marina could barely speak through her tears, but she managed to whisper, "Yes." "Yes," Gabriel repeated, as if he couldn't believe it. "Yes, Gabriel, yes to everything." Gabriel stood up and kissed her with a passion that spoke of months of separation, of danger faced together, of love tested and approved by the most extreme circumstances. When they separated, Marina looked at the ring that now sparkled on her finger. "It's beautiful." "Like you," Gabriel said, caressing her face. They dined by candlelight, talking about the future they would build together. Gabriel spoke about his decision not to accept the position at the Supreme Court, at least for a few years. He wanted to stay in London, work as an appeal court justice, be close to Marina as she established her anti-corruption department. Marina told him about the cases she was already receiving, people who had followed Operation Clean Foundation, and wanted her help to report other corruption situations. "We're going to be a power couple," Gabriel chuckled. "You investigating corruption, me judging the corrupt. As long as we don't have a conflict of interest again," Marina teased. "Never again. I promise I'll recuse myself from any case involving you or your firm." After dinner, they stayed on the terrace, watching the city below. It was almost midnight when Gabriel made an observation. "You know what's funny? If you hadn't had that panic attack in the elevator, maybe we never would have truly met." "True," Marina agreed. "I would have spent the whole night trying to be invisible at that ball. And I would have spent the whole night fulfilling social obligations and gone home alone, as always." Marina nestled in his arms. "Fate is funny, isn't it?" "Very. But thankfully it locked us in that elevator. And then in the courthouse. And then in safe houses and escape boats," Gabriel added, laughing. "At least the next. Time's fate locks us somewhere. We'll be together by choice." "Forever," Gabriel confirmed, kissing the top of her head. 6 months later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Marina and Gabriel were married in an intimate ceremony at St. Paul's Cathedral in the historic centre of London. The guest list was small but significant. Caroline, Marina's best friend, Dr. Morrison from the firm, federal agent Mark Riley, and a few close colleagues from the court. Marina wore a simple but elegant dress, a white lace model that enhanced her natural beauty. Gabriel was radiant in a navy blue suit, with a smile that hadn't left his face since he woke up. "You two," said the priest during the ceremony, "are an example that true love can overcome any obstacle. You faced adversities that would break many couples, but you emerged stronger and more united." When they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the church. "Marina," Gabriel said, holding her hands, "you taught me that courage is not the absence of fear, but acting despite fear. I promise to be by your side in all struggles, support you in all dreams, and love you in all circumstances." "Gabriel," Marina replied, her voice choked with emotion, You showed me that it's worth fighting for the truth even when the price seems too high. I promise to be your partner in life, in work, in everything. I promise that we will face everything together." When the priest declared them husband and wife, Gabriel kissed Marina with all the passion accumulated since that first night in the elevator. It was a kiss that spoke of promises fulfilled, obstacles overcome, of a love that had proven to be indestructible. The reception was small but joyful, held at the same restaurant where they had had their first official date. Emotional speeches, many tears of joy, and the certainty that this was just the beginning of an incredible journey. "So," Caroline said during her maid of honor speech, "who would have thought that a panic attack in an elevator would lead to the wedding of the century?" Everyone laughed, but Marina and Gabriel knew there was more truth in those words than most imagined. 2 years later, Marina and Gabriel had become one of London's most respected couples. Marina's firm's anti-corruption department had grown exponentially, becoming a national benchmark. Gabriel had established himself as one of the most upright and competent appeal court justices in the county. They lived in an elegant but welcoming house in Belgravia, with an impressive library and a small office where they worked together on weekends, analyzing cases and legal strategies. "You know what I'm thinking," Marina said one night, as they reviewed documents for a new municipal corruption case. "What?" "That maybe it's time to expand our family." Gabriel looked up from the papers and smiled. "Are you talking about what I think you're talking about?" "I'm talking about a baby, Gabriel, or 2, or 3. Gabriel stood up, walked around the table, and kissed her deeply. "I think that's the best idea you've ever had. Better than exposing the prosperity circle? Infinitely better." As they kissed there in the improvised office, surrounded by court documents and evidence of corruption, Marina thought about how surprising life was. She, who had grown up poor and without expectations, had found not only the love of her life, but also her professional purpose. Gabriel, who had spent years seeking recognition and status, had discovered that true fulfillment came from fighting for justice alongside the person he loved. And it had all begun with a moment of panic in an elevator, when 2 people from completely different worlds met and discovered they were 2 halves of the same whole. Some encounters change destinies, some loves defy the impossible, and some elevators, when they stop between floors, are not just facing a technical problem, they are creating destinies. Marina and Gabriel knew this better than anyone, because they were living proof that sometimes the best loves are born in the most unexpected moments, grow through the greatest obstacles and become indestructible when 2 people decide they are worth fighting for, forever.